this is an important press conference, not just because of what we're going to, the specifics of what we're going to announce today, but because of the new pattern and the new path that we're taking in Cuyahoga County when it comes to consumer protection. So this particular event has to do with what we're doing with the challenges that families face as their kids are getting ready to go back to school, which my youngest daughter is thrilled to be starting this Wednesday. But that's something that all families, it's one of the consumer issues that families face as their kids are going back to school. But these consumer issues are something that families, particularly working families in this community, face every single day. And we wanted Cuyahoga County's new government to start taking a role and start taking the side of the consumers when it comes to these issues in a way that some counties have in the United States, but this county never had before. And so we will have sequels to this as we deal with different issues. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I do want to recognize I think it's important because this is the first kind of public initiative that we've had as we started this this new program and this new department. I wanted to recognize my colleague, County Councilman Dan Brady. He sponsored the legislation that created the department. He's a longtime consumer advocate, both in terms of his own personal beliefs and his own career. And I think he can kind of set the stage for what we're trying to accomplish here. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. The reason I'm here actually goes back quite a ways, but the story won't go on very long. 30 years ago, I was the director of the Department of Weights and Measures for the newly elected auditor, Tim McCormick. And in that role, I pretty quickly was able to determine that there were powers given by the state of Ohio to the Department of Weights and Measures that went well beyond what was current practice and what was really basically what the state minimally required counties to do. And that was the beginning of the germination of an idea that a consumer affairs department might be appropriate. A few years later, as a Cleveland City Councilman, I failed in an attempt to make that happen at Cleveland City Hall, where they have their own Weights and Measures department. And as a candidate for county council, I had this in my mind as something that if I got elected, I would try to do again. And so I'm very pleased that my colleagues in the council and the executive agreed with me, and also very pleased that the executive was able to find someone like Cynthia Sench, who is so experienced and such a veteran, because that choice is in many ways the most important decision that would have been made in terms of whether this department would be successful or not. So I look forward to the future of the Consumer Affairs Department, and I thank the executive for inviting me to this conference.
Thank you, sir. So what's this particular initiative? Well, again, as Cynthia started in her new role as the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs, again, there's some things we do behind the scenes, but we wanted to kind of start launching a series of initiatives, and we started with this back-to-school program. And I'm going to just kind of set the stage a little bit and then turn it over to Cindy, but just to echo what Councilman Brady said, she has over 24 years of experience in this area. So we were lucky to get her, and we are glad that she's now putting that expertise to work on behalf of consumers in Cuyahoga County. But we recognize that this was a particular issue when it came to purchasing back-to-school supplies, and that was her first challenge. She's going to talk about how we did this, but basically she used a lot of the existing staff in our Weights and Measures department to basically price verify. If an outlet says this is what they're charging for back-to-school supplies, are they keeping their promises? Are they delivering the products as advertised? Or is sometimes the consumer being told one thing and experiencing something else when they go into the store? So in terms of getting into exactly how that was done on this particular occasion and what we're planning on doing next, let me turn it over to Cynthia to explain the way the process works. We have some, and she'll get into this, but she'll get into the locations, as you can see. By the way, I would just notice right off the bat, you'll see City of Cleveland is not included, they have their own process that they go through. So this was focusing on suburban areas at all of the major retail establishments that advertise for back-to-school supplies. Cynthia, go ahead.
What we did was we went out and surveyed through price verification 138 stores. What our weights and measures staff did was when they go into the store, they identify themselves, they show their identification, and then they offer the store managers to go around with them while they actually do the price verification. And a majority of the store managers do that. When an error is found, the store does corrections prior to the inspector leaving, so the matter is resolved. Now, we do have what they're called pricing errors. This was one error out of 25 items that were inspected can cause it to be a failure. So on here, a percentage, 118 of the stores that we did had 100% passage, which means there were no errors. So we had over 85.5% of the stores passing successfully. And the ones that did have some errors, we're talking, they did resolve them, and the errors range from $2.75 down to 10 cents. So within the 25 items, they were resolved before all of them left. We will be doing follow-ups because that is what happens when you go out and do an unannounced inspection. We will be doing follow-ups to make sure that all are in compliance 100%. That is how the procedure is done. We are going to be doing future ones. With the holidays rolling around, it's the time that we'll also be looking at your Thanksgiving turkeys and your meals to also see if the price is verified and that the weights are accurate as well.
So just a couple things that I'd mention, and then we'll take any questions that you may have. One is consumers already saved in one sense in that, as Cynthia mentioned, when we found an error, it was immediately corrected in the consumer's favor. So that's important. Now, it may not sound like a lot of money, but when you're penny pinching, and a lot of families have to, it's still important. And it also sends a very strong message to retailers that we have the consumer's back when it comes to these kinds of issues. So that's important. Secondly, we're not saying why these errors happen. We're not saying it was by design or intention or just an error. But that is one of the reasons why we're going to end up doing follow-up inspections. If we see the same retailers making the same mistakes even after they've been corrected, then I think we might use a little bit stronger language about this. But for the time being, we're saying there were errors. They've been corrected as far as we know. But they've basically, all these retailers have been put on notice that we will be back. And not just around these back-to-school issues. And as Cindy mentioned, the next thing that we kind of have on our timeline is for these Thanksgiving issues, which again, it's a major expense for a lot of families as they have families getting together. It's a major source of consumer spending, and we're letting the retail universe know that we're going to be out there doing what we think the consumers in this county now expect us to do, and we're very happy to come full circle, as Councilman Brady said, to accept this as part of the mission statement now of county government. This is just the first installment of that, not the last, first installment. Any questions anybody might have?
What were some of the most common items that were issued on this?
Because this was targeted
Why don't you
to
come up here? Come on up here when you answer.
This was targeted to back to school. So some of the supplies that we saw the error were, I'm going to say, notebooks. We had a couple with errors on the notebooks and a couple errors on the pens, if I'm not mistaken.
Obviously, you want to see 100% stores with no errors, but you said 118 passed. Was that what you expected? Were you satisfied with that?
Yes, because we're talking over 85% came back with 100%. And these were store ad items. Half of the 25 items we picked came right from their store ads that they send out.
Any other questions?
Cindy, I have a question. Obviously, this is a great record. This is pretty doggone good overall. But does this still indicate that consumers really still have to pay attention when they get to the register? I mean, are you insisting that this was always the case even connect the dots from these ads that you have here to the register.
Yes, as a consumer, you must always be looking at the cash register. If you're using an ad that brings you into the store, have the ad with you when you're at the counter to pick up the notebook to make sure the price says right. And then when you hit the cash register, don't be rushed. My answer is we all have to wait in line. Don't let the person behind you make you feel like I have to rush through. If you should be watching the numbers come up, I do. I watch the numbers come up when I grocery shop or buy because errors can happen. So yes, consumers still need to use due diligence.
I just would close things out by just asking, the general public and the media, if you have suggestions for us of areas or issues where you believe that we need to take a look at an issue because a consumer is being overcharged or any kind of consumer issue, that's not the only thing that we handle, let us know. We'll be certainly open to having that kind of communication with the public because, we have a limited staff. We're going to do some targeted strategies here. But the consumers are out there as a whole, are out there in every outlet every day. So you're going to see more than we do. So we always ask both the media and general public to help be our eyes and ears as time goes on, and let us know. Contact Cynthia's office, and we'd be happy to follow up on any complaints that the general public may have. Again, that's something the county never did before. But in addition to cleaning up all the other problems we had in county government, we're also adopting this as another way that we can protect the public. I want to thank both the councilman and Cynthia for getting this whole thing off to a great start. And again, we look forward to having many sequels to this as the year and the years go by. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.